Okay, so picture this. I was just some guy, right? Name's Ben. Used to work in an office, crunching numbers, boring stuff. Then, bam. Everything went sideways. I was on my lunch break, grabbed a hot dog from a street vendor, minding my own business in downtown Chicago, near Millennium Park. Suddenly, this lady, looked all pale and sweaty, just lunged at the vendor. Not like a mugging, this was savage. She bit him, right there. He screamed, and then, weirdest thing, he started acting like her. His eyes went blank, and he started shambling towards the nearest person, like a puppet on strings. That's when the panic hit. It wasn't just one. It was like a switch flipped for a bunch of people. They started stumbling, groaning, and just going for anyone. I saw a businessman, all suited up, get tackled by a woman who was supposed to be a tourist. He was screaming, but it wasn't fear, it was pain, like nothing I'd ever heard. Then I saw him, his skin turning that sickly gray, his eyes losing all life, and then he was up, joining the pack. It was like watching a nightmare play out in real time, but it was real. My brain just couldn't process it. My hot dog fell on the pavement, and I didn't even care. I just ran. I ran like I'd never run before. Through streets that were quickly becoming a chaotic mess. Cars crashing, people screaming, that awful groaning sound everywhere. I saw a mom, trying to pull her kid away from a guy who definitely turned. The guy grabbed her, and the kid just froze. I couldn't look. I had to keep moving. Every instinct screamed at me to find shelter, to hide. But where? This was the city, normally packed with people, now it was a death trap. I ended up ducking into an old bookstore, the smell of old paper suddenly comforting in the face of all that putridness. Inside, it was dark and quiet, a welcome change from the horror outside. But the quiet was also unnerving. I was alone. Utterly alone. The sounds from the street were muffled, but still there, a constant reminder of what was happening. I found a sturdy table and wedged myself underneath it, trying to control my breathing. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. I thought about my family, my friends. Are they okay? Are they even alive? The uncertainty was a different kind of terror, gnawing at me. You start to question everything. Who can you trust? Can anyone be trusted? The hunger started later, a gnawing emptiness that became more urgent than the fear for a brief moment. I searched the shelves, finding nothing edible. Just books. Miles of books. Then I remembered, I had a granola bar in my pocket. It was the best thing I'd ever tasted, even if it was a bit stale. As I was rationing it, I heard a shuffling sound from outside the store. Not the frenzied groans, but something slower, more deliberate. What would you do if you found yourself in a deserted building, with limited supplies, and the sounds of the infected just outside? Would you stay put and hope for the best, or risk it all for a chance at what? I'm telling you this because, well, I don't know if anyone will ever hear this. If you do, please, if you're out there, subscribe to this channel. Give it a like. It's all I can think to do. This is my last record. My last breath, maybe. Because that shuffling, it's getting closer. The static crackled, a familiar, unwelcome companion to the dwindling battery life. Another few hours, maybe. The shuffling sound was no longer distant. It was a rhythmic drag, a scraping that seemed to seep from the very walls of the cramped room. The door, a flimsy barrier of cheap wood, vibrated with each passing scrape. He pressed himself tighter against the cold concrete, trying to disappear, to become part of the shadows. The smell, a cloying mix of decay and something metallic, was becoming unbearable, making his stomach churn. He could hear more than just the shuffling now. Muffled groans, not quite human, not quite animal, echoed from the hallway. They were desperate sounds, hungry sounds. He risked a peek through a crack in the boarded-up window. The street outside was a tableau of stillness, an unnatural calm that was more terrifying than any storm. No cars, no distant sirens, just the eerie silence broken only by the advancing dread. Shapes moved in the dim light, shambling figures with jerky, unnatural gaits. They were everywhere. He'd seen them earlier, distant and slow, but now they were closing in. The shuffling was a symphony of destruction, a prelude to something he couldn't even begin to comprehend. He had to move. Staying put was suicide. But where? Every exit was a gamble, every shadow a potential hiding place that could easily become a trap. He'd already checked the other rooms. Empty, save for overturned furniture and the lingering scent of whatever they were. He clutched the rusted pipe tighter, its weight a meager comfort. The groaning intensified, closer now, directly outside the door. A heavy thud struck the wood, making the whole structure groan in protest. Then another. And another. They were trying to get in. He scanned the room again, his eyes darting from one dark corner to the next. The small ventilation shaft near the ceiling, it was a long shot, impossibly narrow. But it was the only possibility that wasn't the door. He had to try. The thuds on the door became more insistent, more violent. Splinters of wood began to fly inwards. The air grew thick with the stench, the sounds of their broken efforts filling the tiny space. He could hear them breathing now, ragged, wet breaths just on the other side of the wood. He dragged a rickety table over, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He climbed onto it, stretching his fingers towards the vent. It was just out of reach. He needed to jump. He braced himself, the scraping and pounding reaching a fever pitch. One more desperate leap, then he was clinging to the edge of the vent, his fingers finding purchase on the rough metal. He pulled himself up, scraping his knees and elbows, the sound of the door finally giving way echoing from below. He hauled himself through the opening, landing with a grunt on a dusty, enclosed space. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and something else, something metallic and slightly acrid. It was dark, but a sliver of light peeked through a crack in the wall ahead. He crawled towards it, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sounds from outside were muffled now, but still present. He could hear heavy footsteps, the clang of metal, and the occasional shout. They were still searching. He reached the crack and peered through. It was a narrow corridor, dimly lit by flickering oil lamps. Two figures, their backs to him, were talking in low, urgent tones. They were guards, dressed in rough tunics and leather armor. One held a torch, casting long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. He strained to hear their conversation, but it was too distorted. They seemed agitated, their gestures sharp and dismissive. He waited, barely breathing, hoping they would move on. After what felt like an eternity, one of the guards gestured impatiently and they both walked away, their footsteps receding into the gloom. He let out a shaky breath. Now was his chance. He pushed at the wall, trying to find a way out of this cramped space. The metal of the vent was cold against his hands. He felt along the edge, searching for any kind of latch or weakness. Nothing. It was sealed tight. He slumped back, the desperation creeping in. He was trapped. The sounds from outside seemed to grow louder again, closer this time. Panic began to set in. He looked around the confined space, his eyes scanning for any other possibility. There had to be another way. He kicked at the wall, the dull thud echoing in the confined space. He struck something solid, a section of the wall that felt different. He scraped away the dust and grime, revealing a rusted metal plate. It looked like an access panel. He fumbled with it, his fingers finding a small, stiff lever. He pulled with all his might. It creaked, groaned, and then with a loud snap, it gave way. The panel swung inwards, revealing not a passage, but a sheer drop into darkness. He recoiled, his heart leaping into his throat. It was a long way down. He could hear the faint murmur of voices from the bottom. They were still here, below him. He looked back at the vent, then down into the abyss. There was no turning back. He took a deep breath, held on to the edge of the opening, and lowered himself into the darkness. His feet touched something soft and yielding. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell. He was in a room, the air heavy with the scent of straw and fear. He could hear a low, rhythmic chanting. So, here I am, stuck in this damn subway tunnel. Just my luck. 1 minute I'm on my way to work, the next, the whole city's gone to hell. I remember seeing it on the news, then everything just broke. People screaming, cars crashing, and then those things. God, those things. They weren't people anymore. They were just hungry. I saw a woman, her face all mangled, just gnawing on someone's arm like it was a piece of steak. I threw up then, right there on the platform. Couldn't help it. This tunnel's my sanctuary, I guess. Or my tomb. Hard to tell. I've been down here for days. Weeks. Time gets fuzzy when you're this scared. The silence is the worst. Or maybe it's the sounds. The drip, drip, drip of water, the scuttling of rats, and sometimes, way, way down the tracks, this horrible moaning. Makes my skin crawl. I've been surviving on whatever I can find. Empty vending machines are surprisingly useful. Candy bars, stale chips, even those disgusting hot dogs that were probably ancient to begin with. Anything to keep going. The hardest part isn't the hunger, though. It's the alone. You start to doubt everything. Was that scream real? Did I imagine that shadow? Every little noise sends a jolt of pure terror through me. I've seen people too, sometimes. A couple of weeks ago, a group came through, all armed, looking for supplies. They seemed okay at first, but then they started arguing, shouting about who saw what first, who deserved what. One guy, real jumpy, just pulled his gun and, well, it wasn't pretty. They left him there. I watched from behind a pillar, my heart pounding like a drum solo. Trust is a luxury I can't afford anymore. I found this vent shaft earlier. Big enough to crawl through. It goes up, I think. To the surface. The thought terrifies me. What if it's worse up there? What if they're waiting? But staying here, that's a slow death too. I can feel my mind starting to fray around the edges. The chanting I heard earlier, was that real? Or just something my brain cooked up to keep me company? I don't know. But I have to do something. This darkness, this quiet, it's starting to feel like a shroud. I can hear them now, a low, rhythmic chanting. It's coming from further down the tunnel, deeper in the black. Not the usual moaning. This is organized. And it's getting louder. My hands are shaking. What the hell is going on down here? I didn't think there were other living people down this far. And this chanting, it's unnerving. It's like a prayer, but wrong. Twisted. I can smell something too, something metallic and foul, mixed with that damp, earthy smell of the tunnels. My stomach clenches. I need to know. I have to know what's making that sound. The rhythmic chanting continued, each guttural syllable echoing through the narrow passage. It wasn't just noise, it was a deliberate, synchronized chorus, growing in volume with an unsettling intensity. The metallic tang in the air was stronger now, sharp and acrid, making my nostrils burn. I pressed myself against the cold, slimy concrete wall, trying to control the tremor in my hands. There was no way anyone could be down here voluntarily, not with that sound. A flickering light appeared at the far end of the tunnel, bobbing erratically. It wasn't a flashlight beam, it was a primal, unsteady glow, like firelight. The chanting seemed to swell in response to it, a wave of discordant vocals that vibrated through the soles of my boots. My breath hitched. I knew I should turn back, run as fast as I could, but a morbid curiosity, a terrible need to understand, kept me rooted to the spot. What was creating that light? And who, or what, was singing that awful song? As the light drew closer, the figures moving within its unsteady radius began to resolve. They were hunched, shambling forms, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. Their bodies were covered in what looked like tattered rags, clinging to them like a second skin. The metallic smell intensified with their approach, a sickly sweet scent now mixed with the overpowering stench of decay. They weren't walking, they were dragging themselves forward, their movements uncoordinated yet strangely purposeful. The chanting wasn't coming from them directly, I realized with a sickening lurch. It was emanating from the tunnels themselves, a chorus of echoes amplified and distorted, or perhaps, it was coming from something else entirely, something that had taken root in this deep, dark place. The flickering light was carried by one of the figures, a crude torch held aloft. Its face, or what I could see of it through the grime and shadow, was a ghastly sight, sunken eyes, slack jaw, and skin stretched taut over bone. They were getting closer. The sound of their shuffling feet, a wet, scraping noise, was now audible beneath the chanting. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was no group of lost souls. This was something else. The air grew heavy, thick with an oppressive dread that seemed to leach the very strength from my limbs. I could feel a prickling sensation on my skin, as if something unseen was watching, waiting. I had to move, now. They were definitely coming. The chanting grew louder, more guttural, and the scraping sound was right outside the flimsy wooden door. I couldn't stay put. My eyes darted around the cramped space, searching for any kind of escape. There was a small, boarded-up window on the far wall, barely larger than my head. It was my only shot. I scrambled over to it, ignoring the ache in my legs. The wood was old, rotten. I started pulling at the planks, my fingers digging into the damp splinters. The door creaked open. A sliver of light, sickly yellow, sliced through the darkness, illuminating a single, shuffling figure. It wasn't human, not entirely. The limbs were too long, too jointed, and the head lolled at an unnatural angle. A low moan escaped its throat, a sound that scraped against my nerves. I kept working at the window, the wood groaning under my desperate efforts. Another figure appeared in the doorway, then another. They were slow, but they were relentless. The first plank gave way with a splintering crack. Dust rained down. I shoved my hand through the gap, feeling the rough, cold night air. The scraping noises were closer now, inside the building with me. Panic began to set in, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I pulled harder at the next plank. It fought back, but I was fueled by pure adrenaline. The figures were advancing into the room, their vacant eyes, if they even had eyes, fixed on me. They moved with a disturbing grace, a fluid, unnatural movement that was deeply unsettling. I could hear their wet breathing, a rasping, constant sound. The window was my only hope. I braced my foot against the wall and yanked. The second plank ripped free, leaving a larger opening. I could see the murky outline of the world outside, the faint glow of stars. Just one more. I reached for the final plank, my hands shaking. One of the figures was almost on me, its long, skeletal fingers reaching out. I didn't dare look. I twisted my body, shoving my head and shoulders through the narrow opening. The rough wood scraped against my skin, but I pushed through. I tumbled out onto damp earth, landing awkwardly. The sounds from inside continued, a chorus of groans and scraping. I didn't wait to see if they followed. I got to my feet and ran, not looking back, my heart still pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The darkness was a welcome cloak. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead, until the sounds from the building were lost to the night. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The oppressive dread of the place still clung to me, a chilling reminder of what I had escaped. I just kept running, hoping for a dawn that felt like it might never come. Thank you for joining me on this journey. As we reach the end of this harrowing account, it's crucial to remember that vigilance and preparedness are our greatest allies. The stories we've shared, while fictionalized, underscore the vital importance of thinking ahead and having a plan. Whether it's a localized emergency or a more widespread disruption, the principles of self-reliance remain paramount. We saw how the initial moments of chaos can be overwhelming, leading to panic and poor decisions. The desperation to escape the confines of that dreadful place, to simply run, was a primal instinct. But survival isn't just about fleeing, it's about adapting and rebuilding. Each choice made under pressure, from the initial flight to the subsequent struggle for safety, highlighted how quickly circumstances can change and how essential it is to maintain a level head. The sheer terror of the unknown, the gnawing uncertainty of what lay beyond the immediate threat, tested the very core of one's will. One of the most valuable lessons gleaned is the power of resourcefulness. In any challenging scenario, understanding your surroundings and knowing how to utilize what's available can make the difference between despair and resilience. Think about it, even in the direst of circumstances, there are often hidden opportunities to be found. A simple knowledge of edible plants, basic first aid, or how to purify water can elevate your chances of enduring. These are skills that, once learned, become second nature, a quiet confidence in your ability to face adversity. Above all, never underestimate the strength that comes from remaining calm. When faced with overwhelming fear or uncertainty, the instinct to panic is strong. However, it is in those moments that clear thinking is most critical. Taking a deep breath, assessing the situation rationally, and focusing on the immediate, actionable steps can prevent further complications. This mental fortitude is as vital as any physical preparation. It's the inner compass that guides you through the storm, ensuring that your actions are deliberate and effective, rather than reactive and detrimental. As you continue your own journey, always strive for preparedness. Keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep a calm and steady mind. Your ability to adapt and persevere is your greatest strength. If you found this narrative insightful, please consider subscribing for more explorations of resilience and survival. We also encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your feedback helps us all learn and grow together.